Lou from the Irish Politics newsletter. And welcome to the premiere episode of the Atlantic Current podcast. I'm joined by Vince Martin on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Vince, welcome.
Hi, Tull. Hi, everybody. I'm quite excited to be here for the launch as I join you here from the States. A quick shout out to Music and Media for the theme music there. Uplifting Irish Energy, which we thought was a fitting title.
Well, it's a lot of politics, so it won't always be uplifting. But we also cover current events and no doubt some lighter topics as well, like, whatever's going on in Trump's bedroom these days. And what we hope is that our different perspectives will provide some interesting insights to those topics. A lot of commonalities between a country, but there's quite a few differences as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think some differences in our experiences also. I mean, you've written the Irish Politics newsletter for many years now. You've got thousands of subscribers, the ear of some influential people in Ireland. I've written mostly about finance the last 15 years, a little bit of politics. I was a touring stand-up comedian here in the States for a long time. So we're going to the difference between Ireland and the U.S. Will provide some perspective, but we're also going to be kind of coming to all these topics and these events with different experiences and different expertise as well, which I think is going to make for some lively and interesting conversations.
And I think there's quite a bit we can learn from each other, culturally, politically, with a little dash of humor, of course. Do you think Americans can understand Ireland? Do you think the wider American population understands Ireland?
No, absolutely not.
Even Irish Americans?
I think it's probably a little bit better, but it's still not great. I will say that the reputation of your country here is hugely positive. Americans love Ireland, and I think it's probably the most popular foreign country in America. It's the only country that doesn't really have like a negative stereotype. Ireland, people just sort of think of nice things, beautiful scenery, friendly faces, pubs, all that stuff. But I think even when you get to the details, Irish Americans, we just kind of don't know that much. I would love at some point to do one of those man on the street segments and just go into a really Irish American neighborhood. Maybe it's the North Bronx or South Boston, and just see what the answers to kind of basic questions about Ireland from Irish Americans are. And the first one I would ask would be population, because I think even most Irish Americans don't realize that Ireland, the island of Ireland only has 7 million people, something like that.
Yeah, the population of the island of Ireland is just north of 7 million people, and the Republic of Ireland is 5.2 million. That doubled in about 40 years. It's the highest the population has been in about over 170 years, I think. I'm sure some historian is going to come on and tell me I'm wrong, but I think it's 170 years. There's lots of reasons for that growth in population, but the main factor is economic reasons, and, to decide to stop murdering each other in Northern Ireland based on what religion you are.
Yeah, that probably does help. But I think the average American would guess that the population of Ireland was maybe 40 million, 60 million. It is a big country in the American imagination. We celebrate St. Patrick's Day, obviously, quite a bit here, maybe not in the correct way.
Don't you dye your rivers in Chicago green? And, it's basically a national alcohol holiday, isn't it?
It is a national alcohol holiday, and the Green River in Chicago is pretty cool. I think the green beer and some kind of ratty dive, not quite as complimentary to our Irish ancestors. But there aren't other countries in America that get a day, even much larger countries. It is a lot of drinking, and that helps. But you're the Taoiseach. How's my Irish pronunciation there?
It's good. It's good. Yeah.
Not bad for a Yank. Your Taoiseach, he visits, he or she will visit that White House every year. Is that right?
Every single year without fail. I think the Bowl of Shamrock first made appearance in the White House in the 1950s or 1952, when the Irish ambassador to the USA, a fellow called John Hearn, also known as Ireland's Thomas Jefferson because he drafted Ireland's constitution, he presented a box of shamrock to President Harry Truman. There's no tradition more Irish than the Irish, and we love a good tradition. 23 Americans claim Irish descent of some sort, although some claims are more dubious than others.
23 American presidents, right?
Yeah. 58% of Medal of Honor recipients are Irish American. That's twice the number awarded to any other ethnic group. It's a lot of influence for such a small country, really, isn't it?
There's a huge amount of influence here, and I think you can kind of put it into context. with some of the countries that are larger, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Benin, these are all countries that have larger populations. I think Benin is actually double Ireland's population. And not only do they not get a day here in America, I think the overwhelming majority of Americans don't even know where those countries are.
Isn't war the only way Americans learn about geography? I mean, Peter O'Rourke famously said that wherever there's injustice, oppression, and suffering, America will show up 6 months late and bomb their own country. It's probably harsh, but it's not, it's not without a sliver of truth, is it?
We mean well, sometimes, but I kind of get to the point we don't understand. And I think another thing that we don't understand about Ireland is how much further left your politics are relative to the U.S. as a whole, and I think even to kind of Irish Americans as a group.
This might upset some people I would be close to in politics over the years, but the main political parties, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, declare themselves to be utterly centrist. They're centrist right, but they're not. They're centre-left. They're solidly centre-left. By any kind of logical reasoning or any European or American yardstick, they're kind of AOC Democrats,
Yeah, and that's what kind of jumps out to me, following Irish politics from afar. Irish Americans traditionally have been Democrats, and I'm sure we will talk quite a bit about that shift over time. Even when Irish Americans were heavily Democratic, I don't think they were ever AOC Democrats. And as a group, Irish Americans seem to have moved away from the left wing rather than towards it, which I think is interesting because in Ireland, it does seem, again, as an outsider, like that has gone in the opposite direction.
Look, yesterday we inaugurated our 10th President of Ireland, Catherine Connolly. She's a very socialist president. She's left-wing on a scale of maybe some of the United States' paid figures throughout history. She'll be left-wing in a Cuba or Venezuela sense. She's of that persuasion. She's quite heavily left-wing. We're going to do an episode on the Irish presidency in our next episode where we get into the meat of the issues around the Irish presidency, because there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot to unpack there with the Irish presidency. Ireland's changed. I am not sure, do even Americans realise we're not so much of a Catholic country anymore? And the influence the Catholic Church once had over us is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Do Irish Americans realise that, do you think?
I don't think that's fully appreciated in America, again, even among Irish Americans. To tease another future episode, I'm sure we'll do. I mean, that is a fascinating story. And I mean, again, as an outsider, is it fair to say that the Catholic Church, is it a fair word to say that the Catholic Church dominated Ireland for most of the 20th century? Is that a reasonable word to use?
Yes, it was. They dominated, the Catholic Church dominated,
And that starts to break what? I mean, in the 1980s?
No, it was probably the mid to late 90s. There was child abuse scandal after child abuse scandal after child abuse scandal. But, we were coming out of the depths of poverty. We were an island at the edge of the Atlantic that was, just really poor, enthralled to the Catholic Church. And towards the middle to late 90s, there was scandal after scandal, child abuse scandal started to emerge, and it broke the stranglehold that the Catholic Church had over Irish society.
Yeah, well, the Bishop of Galway had a love child with an Irish American woman, right?
Yes, he did. Bishop Amy Casey had an affair with Annie Murphy, an American lady who bore him a son. Now, there's a darker side to this, rather than the comical bishop knocking up a woman. His niece also recently made allegations of sexual abuse against him. So even, the bishops are at it. So the Catholic Church has no influence in Irish politics anymore. We're not really secular society, similar probably to France and Germany, maybe to a certain extent. I suppose more so than America, because religion still has a very strong hold on the American psyche, I think. Ireland would have been comparable to Latin American countries in terms of being a very Catholic country. But not anymore. We introduced abortion in 2019 and same-sex marriage in 2015. The Church's influence is well on the wane. Before then, they were just the death nails of his coffin.
In America, the power of the Catholic Church definitely started fading earlier, several decades earlier. But it still does have some kind of vestigial influence on Irish American Catholics. And I think even on those Catholics who aren't religious, who aren't necessarily church-going.
You can't overestimate the Church's influence here. Some would rightly claim nefarious influence in a lot of issues. A lot of our laws were based around what bishops thought as opposed to what people needed. But the shackles have long been thrown off now, so it's not a thing anymore. I think mass attendance is around maybe between 15 and 20%, depending on where you are in the country.
Okay. Yeah, that's a huge change. And what's so fascinating, again, as an outsider, is just the speed. I mean, you're saying in the early 1990s, the Catholic Church remains, a heavyweight force in Irish politics. And then you go 25 years later, Ireland becomes, if I have this right, it's the first country to legalize same-sex marriage. Is that right?
It was the 10-year anniversary last May 2025. Yeah, 10 years ago. Ireland became the first country in the world to vote for same-sex marriage into law by popular vote.
By popular vote, right? Okay.
Yeah, so we voted for it. The population voted for it. We were funded referendums in Ireland. So it was 62%, I think, of people voted for.
Wow, yeah.
So, we replaced the Catholic Church with other influences, the EU mostly, UK, USA. Yeah, these were where heavy influences come from these days.
And I'm sure the U.S. is definitely a heavy influence, I would imagine, given our reach. But that aside, is America the country that offers the biggest emotional attachment for people in Ireland, or is that something you guys just tell tourists when we're out on the West Coast and you're trying to get us to go into the pub that's closest to Boston or whatever? Because I'm sure Britain and United Kingdom has the most influence day-to-day, business, trade, media. But is there kind of a deeper bond with America among Irish men and Irish women?
It's a multifaceted answer. It's very hard to say one country or another has more influence because we share a land border with the UK, obviously. So they can't be ignored as much as we try. A lot of our culture now is imported from the USA. We've, your streaming giants, Apple, Hollywood, American culture. You can't escape it. It's everywhere. So it surrounds us. Recently, we've taken to holding American football matches here in Ireland now, and they're huge events. I mean, the college football games, main football, NFL games, they're massive events bringing, I think the college football game brought in about 40,000 tourists, and similar for the main NFL game. They're huge influences from America, but we share a land border with Northern Ireland, which is still part of the United Kingdom. But since Brexit, I think the UK's influence on the island as a whole has been lessened somewhat. Northern Ireland, it's an issue. It's not going away anytime soon. We've taken the gun out of Irish politics, so to speak, but the politics of what to do with Northern Ireland and what Northern Ireland wants for itself is very much a hot topic of debate. It's still an incredibly divided society up there. We're going to have to do about 20 episodes on Northern Ireland alone,
I'm sure that's a question that a lot of Americans would ask, because that is an experience that's pretty alien to us. So what is the broad perception of Northern Ireland in the Republic?
I think it depends on what generation you ask. It's a generational question, I suspect. The younger generation would tell you it's important that Ireland is united, the whole island is united again. The older generations are more wary, having lived through the troubles, the daily bombings, murders, maims, punishment, beatings. Gardaí, our police service, we call our policemen over here Gardaí. They were murdered, soldiers murdered. And an older generation is just far more weary of looking over the border and having a long memory of, the horrors that came with that, because people identified on one side or the other, and, that was sometimes a matter of life or death. No, you could have asked me about quantum theory or the macroeconomic policies of Peru's copper mining industry on the building of Irish data centres, but no, you have to ask about Northern Ireland. So complicated. I mean, you'd have to bring in a proper historian. I mean, me shooting from the hip, that'll be fun and stuff like that, but I might get ratioed by the historians.
I grew up in the 1980s and not far from New York City. So we heard about it all the way up through the Good Friday Agreement. It was a big focus of Irish Americans. I remember Noraid cans and grocery stores and gas stations, which were used to raise money for the IRA activities in the North. And that was a story that we were kind of told, or at least perhaps maybe the better way to put it is a story that we believed was relatively simple. It was the IRA were the good guys and the British were the bad guys. And in response, Irish Americans raised money, and they also chose to drink only Jameson and not Bushmills, because Jameson was Catholic whiskey and Bushmills was Protestant whiskey. Is that something that you've heard of, or that anybody even considers over in the old country?
It's more of an American myth, I think. I've
Okay.
seen I've seen Bushmills on sale in plenty of pubs in the Republic of Ireland. I think because of Bushmills' geographic location in County Antrim, it would have been considered a strongly Protestant area, and that's where that comes from. But Jameson's founder was also Protestant. And Bushmills.
Yeah, and it's not great for Irish Americans that we're backing John Jameson either. Religion aside, is probably not the kind of guy you want to be honoring in a pub.
No. But Bushmills is now owned by a Catholic Mexican family, would you believe? The Proximo Group. And do you know where their headquarters are?
No.
New Jersey. I think that's your home state, is it not?
Yes, it is. Yep. Yeah, how about that?
So, and the same guys, the Proximo Group, the Catholic Mexicans that now own Bushmills. Do you know whose whiskey they recently bought?
I can't imagine.
Well, they bought Conor McGregor's Proper 12 whiskey for $600 million.
Wow, that is about $599 million too much. On the topic of whiskey, particularly Americans who have never been to Ireland, I'm sure they want to ask, we're talking about booze. Are the stereotypes true? Do the Irish love their drink as much as everyone believes they do?
No, not anymore. We love cocaine more now. Cocaine is the
moving up in the world.
Yeah, first world country and all that. Cocaine is the nation's poison of choice these days. For example, people are into fitness, they're into their health, and they're into their cocaine a lot. Fitness and cocaine.
It keeps you thin, Tull, right?
Yeah. Fitness and cocaine paradoxy are going hand in hand these days. We've become a truly first world country, and we haven't abandoned the booze en masse. Well, I haven't anyway. But the younger generation don't drink as much. Why spend your hard-earned cash down the local pub paying €8 for a beer when you can fly anywhere in Europe for the price of price of dinner and see a whole different world? Younger people are just doing it different now. I'm not, of course. And if I had the same attitude as kids as they had to their health, I'd probably be in a much better place. The short answer to your question is no. We're not a nation of massive alcoholics anymore. All the demographics are showing, and all the studies are showing that alcohol consumption is going down. Alcohol consumption is going down in a massive downward trend.
How about that? Yeah, something else I'm wagering that's probably news to our American listeners.
Do Americans not understand Ireland because we're such a small country? Different electoral systems, probably different electrical systems as well. Massively different.
It's true, you have those weird plugs.
Massively different healthcare systems. We have lots of differences, cultural and otherwise. What is it about Ireland that you think Americans don't understand?
One answer, unfortunately, is that I think it's not really about Ireland. We just don't really know that much or focus that much on the outside world. And that is, admittedly, it's a terrible response for Irish listeners. It's kind of like telling your wife, don't get so upset. I treat all women like garbage. Why are you taking this so personally? But it's not Ireland. We don't have a good read, on the outside world. I don't think we get good information, on the world outside our borders. We're somewhat of an inwardly, focused country.
So what's the average American's news intake? Where are you getting your news from? I mean, is it just poor quality news or not, kind of introspective news? You don't look so much beyond your borders. I mean, social media transcends borders now. That's how most people consume media from different countries.
If you talk about your flagship media, let's say New York Times, Washington Post, they're doing international coverage. I think even there's some international stereotypes that kind of get played up. So, if there's riots in France, that gets coverage. In Mexico, cartel activity, things like that. Mexico is a good example. I mean, that's our largest trading partner. But we get very minimal coverage about the underlying politics there, the economics. I don't think we have a real sense of the middle class, the day-to-day life in Mexico. And it's weird. It's a country next door, which is a huge trading partner that we don't know that much about. It is, I think, in this global scale, logical. It would be like you guys not hearing about Brexit.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful. I'm sick of it. Everybody's sick of it. There's Brexit vomit scattered all over the place. It's on the ceiling. It's behind the seats in the car. It's, oh God, it's everywhere. Everyone is sick of Brexit.
My wife and I were in West Cork, and we walked into a pub. They had the news on, and there was a very nice, proper-looking woman, probably in her early 60s, sitting at the bar watching the news. And the lead item, of course, then was Brexit. And she took a sip of her drink, and she just said very loudly, kind of to no one in particular, she said, "I cannot listen to one more word about this." And I was like, that's 6 years ago, and they're still talking about it. We hear about Brexit all the time. We may not know about Mexico, but Brexit gets plenty of coverage here, even though it doesn't have the same effect. And again, that's kind of the bias. It's even our mainstream media likes covering the UK in part because there have been so many of these weird parallels over the past 50 years or so, right?
Yeah, I think there's always that kind of dichotomy going on between the United States and the UK. You know, this special relationship that's actually not so special on the American side, I suspect. But you had Thatcher, Reagan, Bush, Blair, Trump, Brexit. Ireland's kind of stuck in the middle, clowns to the left and me jokers to the right. but make no mistake, because whatever political malaise infects the USA and the UK and Europe, Ireland will eventually catch it. We're not immune from, outside influences, political influences especially. We're just lagging behind America and UK in terms of drifting to the right, but there's a very strong anti-immigrant rhetoric being imported from America and the UK at the moment.
Yeah, and social media, no doubt, is a big part of that, right?
Look, everything is social media. Social media is to blame for everything right now. Excuse the language. And it's trying to quantify how much of it is from outside, malign intent from outside state actors. That's a bit of a trickier question, but let's have a look at the bot numbers, right? So 71% thereabouts of all traffic in Ireland is made up of bots of some sort. They're either advertising bots or they're malicious bots trying to hack your computer, or they're influencer bots inflating their numbers. So like 75 to 90% of all traffic on TikTok is bots, according to the various studies, right? I'm not sure that a lot of people know that. Like that's a huge amount of bots for an app that's, that's owned essentially by the Chinese army. And we link those in the show. We link those notes in the show, in the show notes. Bots infect about 65% of X. So if you say you have a post and it has 100,000 views, you can be sure 65,000 views are actually made up of bots, not made up of real people. And that's why Elon Musk wants the blue tick on people, so he's able to track exactly the metrics for his advertising.
Well, that's, if you go back, that's why he said he bought Twitter in the first place. And that's when he realized that he had spent $44 billion for it and maybe didn't want to do it, that was how he tried to get out of it. He said, we bought it to get rid of the bots. And then he tried to back out on the theory that there were too many bots, and the courts kind of shut him down.
How many bots do you think Facebook delete on average? Say for the last 2 years, each quarter over the last 2 years. You look at finance a lot. Do you know what to do?
It's got to be millions, right?
On average, it's about 1 billion, give or take 100 million fake accounts per quarter. Now, these so-called bots, it's incredible numbers. So it was up at 1.2 billion in the first quarter of this year of fake profiles and bot accounts that they delete. And these bots are not harmless. They have a purpose. It's usually financial, something nefarious. There's a lot of bad state actors in the social media space right now. You're looking at, particularly Ukraine, Iran. I'm seeing all over my timeline a lot of pro-Russian stuff that was not there, 2 years ago.
It's both bots and it's both real activity that very clearly it hardens ideological bubbles. You meet someone in real life who spends too much time on social media, you can kind of figure it out instantly because they know a lot and it's kind of all going in one direction. And I think part of what we're trying to do here is to avoid that. Again, outside perspectives, different experiences, things like that. Even if you're not on social media, even if you don't really kind of fall into the trap, I think it still has an influence on how things are viewed. And we're going to talk about Donald Trump here very soon.
Yes, whether we want to or not.
Yeah,
exactly. There's a lot of things that can't be avoided in transatlantic politics at the moment. You just can't avoid Trump.
Well, yeah. No, he is unavoidable. There's no doubt about that. One of the things that we're going to talk about is how he's viewed overseas, which I think is something that's pretty interesting to most Americans. We're kind of curious about that. But in general, our sources on that are just so biased. And social media is a little bit of that. Part of that is just sort of how divisive his presidencies have been. But if you read a right-wing article, or if you go on X and read a right-wing account, his view from overseas is one of respect, right? He's the past presidents were walked all over. He's restored America's standing. He's whipped Europe into shape, and Europeans respect him. If you read, if you go on Blue Sky, or if you read a more left-leaning magazine or online outlet, they're going to say that Trump left the G7 summit in Canada early because Macron was making fun of him, and Trump wound up crying in the bathroom and had to go home. The truth usually is in the middle, and it's very difficult for us to kind of figure that out. And I think myself, I know I will, and I imagine our American listeners are going to kind of enjoy getting that outside perspective without the filter. But as you said, Tull, we are going to start. Our next episode is going to be with Irish politics, right?
Yes, in our next episode, we're going to talk about our new president, Queen Catherine Connolly, or St. Catherine of Aleppo, as they're nicknamed her because of her trip to Syria. The story of the election, what the president can and can't do, and what it might mean for Trump's relationship with Ireland. I think that might be an issue, because she's very, very, very left wing, and we know how Trump treats people that are very, very left wing.
So there's already been a little bit of, as we'll talk about, there's been a little bit of noise on this side of the Atlantic about how far left she is, and about Israel, her attitude toward Israel. But I'm looking forward to that episode. Just, I'm an outsider. I didn't follow that closely. I'm looking forward to you kind of filling in the gaps. But it was a good political story. I mean, you have billionaires, you have Elon Musk gets involved. There's a UFC fighter. There's scandals. There's spoiled votes. For me, it was pretty entertaining, even if it doesn't actually impact me personally.
Well, I think it might. Actually, I think it does affect you personally now, doesn't it? We've been working on this project for some time now, Vince, haven't we? And the Irish presidential election caused a rift between the co-hosts of the most popular political podcast in Ireland, and forced them into making changes to their podcast format. And they've now included an Irish American feature, which was to be our shtick. It was to be our calling card. The only people doing this.
I know, they stole our idea. I cannot believe they did it. I'm pretty sure somebody hacked into your phone. That's my takeaway. I'm just connecting the dots here. How strict are Irish libel laws, or slander laws, by the way, anyways?
They're very strict, so you better behave yourself. I have First Amendment rights in the United States, but you have no such thing over here in Ireland.
Yeah, I understand. So, but I do think, in all seriousness, I'm kind of curious to see how they do it. I believe what we're going to be doing is going to be a little different. It's going to be a little more irreverent, I hope. I think a little less consensus. One of the things they talk about in American politics is the idea of being, quote, inside the beltway, where you're in D.C., you're covering it from the inside. And the risk there is always that you get in a little bit of a bubble, whether it's Irish politics, whether it's American politics. We're going to talk about Europe. I'm sure we'll talk about global affairs and some less serious stuff too. Our goal is going to kind of be provide a perspective outside of all these bubbles, I think is how I would put it. Hopefully that's kind of the core reason why we're doing this. And I'll tell you, Tull, it's why I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm really looking forward to this. Our first episode is going to be about the race to be the 10th president of Ireland, the scandals, the controversy, the spoiled votes, and the media fallout when it came to conflicts of interest. We'll talk about what powers the Irish president has. We don't have nuclear weapons in Ireland, so there's no arsenal to unleash in the world. And we'll compare both the American president and the Irish president and what it might mean for the relationship between the two countries. I'm Tull from the Irish Politics Newsletter.
And I'm Vince Martin, and this has been the Atlantic Current. Goodbye.
Goodbye.